What's up, guys? Welcome to a Nerd Talk podcast, Nerdy Talk for Nerdy Fans. I'm your host, Remington Kais, and today we got a special guest in the building. Joining us today is director, producer, writer, Brad Lyon.
Collector of commas between occupations, I think.
I totally feel you on that one because I'm the same way. I produce, I write, I have 4 books out. I've worked on plenty of films and television pilots and all kinds of stuff. I'm in SAG. I'm like multi-talented. People are so shocked when I tell them I do so much uh, in the industry. Usually people stick to one thing.
Yep. And sometimes there is good elements to sticking to one thing. A lot of times people say like, "Hey, you've had such a diverse career. You played football for a living, and you fought inside a steel cage, and you're making movies and stuff." And I'll often say to them, "I'm like, yeah, but here's my one problem. I appreciate that a lot of people do find certain things I've done successful, but when you're competitive, a lot of times you look at things that you did that didn't finish at the level you wanted them to, and you battle with yourself because you view them as failures. Now, in my older years now, I'm starting to realize they weren't necessarily failures, but it does make me realize if I didn't multitask so much and perhaps did focus on some of these certain things individually, could I have been a gold medalist instead of a bronze medalist? Could I have been a NFL All-Pro instead of a guy getting kicked out of camp half the time?
Yeah.
And, that's probably true. Would I have had such a plethora of experiences? No, but would I have perhaps been great at something? Yes. So it's a weird balance. You have to decide which pathway or journey is the one you want to take.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to create B-Stream?
The B Stream's a brand new endeavor for us. But actually, I think the question's kind of fitting because when it comes down to it, it was my years in this industry that made me want to create the B Stream. As a filmmaker, when I first got started as a producer, home video was still a big thing. Now, I don't want to say home video is dead because I love home video. I still collect
Me
home
too.
video. I bought DVDs yesterday.
I still get my streamers for the SAG Awards, so
There you go. Yeah, the screeners come in. So one of the headaches as technology progressed is suddenly we didn't have the revenue in home video. So now the little guys like us weren't pulling in as much opportunity because we don't have 20-30 million dollars to release a film from a marketing standpoint with.
right.
So if the film's not out there and it's not on the shelves at Family Video and Blockbuster anymore, you're not making as much money. So you needed to find, kind of a diverse pathway. One of the things that we did was we brought back the old cinematic roadshow format. We started touring movies in theaters around the country as opposed to just, releasing a few screens and giving it up. We would go to each market and we would actually, show up in that market, meet with the local media, do screenings in that town and so on, and keep traveling, keep doing it. And while I was on that road trip on one of my most recent films, there was a big emphasis point by a lot of people. They're like, "Hey, I'm so glad you brought this movie to us in cinemas out here because we can't find these movies as much anymore." And that got me thinking. I'm like, you know what? You're right. We haven't had as many 90-day broadcast deals. HBO hasn't been coming up for this type of content. We started realizing that less and less streaming services even we're picking up kind of those campy films, those B movies, the old school even sci-fi flicks that had 8-headed sharks, those type of things. There wasn't as many venues for it, and suddenly when I started doing the research and really taking a look, I realized our opportunities were dying. That a lot of the streamers were realizing that for their own sake, for whatever reason, it wasn't the key thing they needed to market on to expand further.
And it's funny that you bring it up because I've talked to a lot of other movie critics about this that you're not seeing because they don't do the straight to DVD anymore. You're not seeing a lot of those smaller budget $2 million, $3 million movies that you were seeing maybe in the early 2000s, late 90s.
Well, yeah, and it's not that they don't want to produce them or anti-producing them. It's just they don't have the same revenue stream formats. The studios have the same issues the little guy does. The studios now realize we don't have Blockbuster. We don't have all these avenues for additional revenue. And for the general public, getting on Netflix seems like a big deal. It's exciting. They subscribe to it. They're excited to see their movie on Netflix. But for us, when we make films, Netflix, my apologies, but quite often it's considered where we go to die.
Mm-hmm.
Netflix is the last window, if you will, and most streaming in general is the last window of distribution. So because it's the last window, it's the least amount of revenue. So when you release on a Netflix, you're not going to have someone going to the theaters paying $12, $15 a ticket to see your film.
Right.
You're not going to have someone walking into Walmart that often buying buying a Blu-ray or DVD at one of the last places in America that still sells them because they can get it on Netflix. So suddenly you have no streaming, no forms of revenue to account for it. And when you have $1 million film, you typically at best have $1 million marketing budget. It's very rare that $1 million film's got 10 or 20 million plus, out there helping make the world know of it. So if you don't have the tools to make video on demand, for instance, profitable, if you're releasing on VOD or what have you, you don't have enough revenue to chance the $1 million. That's why you have a studio that says, hey, I've got to spend $100 million on this movie that we know we can spend another $100 million advertising because odds are we'll make 300 or 400 million and we can continue to operate. But
Right.
even if you made 10 of these $1 million films, if we're only putting $1 or $2 million in each one, they're not going to be seen enough. And the revenue you're going to get from a deal on an Amazon or a Netflix or what have you is just not going to be enough.
Now, what sets you apart from other streaming platforms?
Well, one of the big things is our niche market. We are not, a classic Shudder horror film streaming service, and there's nothing wrong with those. I love those. I have a ridiculous number of subscriptions myself, but I wasn't finding when I was going to a lot of these, especially the primarily horror-based streamers, I wasn't finding a lot of the B movies. And B movies, those term isn't limited to just B movie horror. I love my campy old school, Animal House inspired, American Pie inspired type of, college and teen comedies.
The stuff you would see on like MTV on like a Saturday or Sunday
Yeah,
or Comedy Central.
And those films just aren't being made as often for the same reason for those TV networks. The TV networks don't have the same type of ratings. If they don't have the same type of ratings, they don't have as much advertising money. If you don't have as much advertising money, you can't make more movies that cost them a certain amount.
Right.
So for us, it was about building a network that gave home to the movies we loved, which does include horror films because I'm a huge horror film guy. I mean, obviously, the majority of the films I've directed typically are horror comedies, but I wanted a home for the rest of those B movies that you don't get elsewhere. And I also want to give it kind of what I call, I hate using the term safe community because that rubs a lot of people wrong. And I don't mean it that way. It's almost the exact opposite because there's so many of us who love R-rated films and unrated films and films that are edgy, that happen to have nudity in it and have ridiculous humor. And there's a big part of our culture, that we're really against those things.
Yeah.
And so those people who love them often feel attacked and feel like they don't have a home. And a lot of networks that used to release them prior to social media, really, or the big influx of social media, they weren't experiencing the attacks for doing so.
Mm-hmm.
People weren't showing up with picket signs in front of their place, so they didn't know that you had this small group of people that hated them. And that scared a lot of these, so they started taking them down. Even though it never affected their revenue, they thought it might, not understanding it, so they removed it.
Right.
And for us, we wanted to be that quote-unquote safe place for those movies. We want to be the place that will release any movie in its original form. We're not going to cut it up and censor it. If you subscribe here, you're subscribing to a service that's probably for 18 and up adults, and we're not going to limit what you see. If you want to watch something, you watch it. If you don't like it, you know what? You can change the movie you're watching.
You know what I was shocked with when Disney bought Family Guy, they censored the hell out of it. If you go back to the older episodes on Hulu, there's a lot of stuff cut out. One of my favorite one instance, for example, I can point out is the episode where Brian and Peter go back in time and they're doing like the Back to the Future parody.
Mhm.
There's a 9/11 joke that's really funny in there, and it's completely gone. And they act like it was never there.
I can tell you firsthand, I've had the privilege of working with some pretty large companies at times. There's been some bigger ones that have uh, licensed movies for me in 90-day windows and what have you. And there's been companies that were willing to do small partnerships and advances. And then they would often take a look at our scripts, which half the time they used to not even do that. And they'd say, hey, can we do this more from a PG-13 aspect, or more family friendly? And that was disheartening. It really was, because
Yeah.
I wasn't making this for a 10-year-old to come watch or a 12-year-old. I was making this for an 18, 20, 35, or a guy like me, in his 40s.
Well, the way it's explained is if it goes to art, it's not easily distributable to
And then
other.
they found out they were wrong.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for a Terrifier 3 or films like that. Whether you like the movie or not, here's these big R-rated films that are ridiculous that are saying, hey, you can make hundreds of millions of dollars with R-rated content because there's a whole bunch of people that still want to see it. You're
Right.
just ignoring us.
Because I had pitched Fox this movie called Homie and the Redneck.
Mhm.
And they gave me that whole speech like, well, R-rated movies don't make as much. If you do PG-13, you can get a wider audience and more opportunity to make money. A lot of that bull crap,
And statistically, I think there was an era where I don't want to say that was accurate, but there's a concept that more people are available to purchase the ticket, and that is accurate. But the reality came down. There's this massive fan base that you've forgot about that would have got up and bought the ticket, and now aren't motivated to go buy a ticket at the theater anymore. But I think we're finally cusping it, and I think if you look throughout history, there's always been a bit of roller coaster where you'll have an era, and it's not quite decades. It's usually about 5 or 6 year windows where all of a sudden you can do everything and we want to see everything. And then there's these people who protest so much that they pull it down. And then the people get sick of the protesters, sick of the whiny people, want to see what they have, and they fight back and they bring it back up. And I think we're finally, for another brief period, on that upswing where people are saying, you know what? We want our movies back. And that's what the B Stream's about. It's about giving it that home, that permanent place where you can come and you can enjoy it. And we built a social media aspect into it. There's a thing that inside when you go to the website, it's called the Hive. On our apps, it's actually called Community. But it's where you can actually kind of join almost Facebook style, and you can interact with other fans. You can talk with them. You can post stuff. You can post photos and talk about what you want. And you can even talk to us directly and tell us, these are movies we like to see. And we're transparent. We're going to tell you, you know what? If there's a demand for this, let us go see if we can license it. And we're going to come back and tell you, hey, we can. Or, hey, we can't because it's expensive. Or, hey, there's a deal with this where it's got exclusivity on this server for the next couple of years. We're actually going to try and give you the movies you want and not just give you movies we tell you to watch.
Do you guys focus on more original content or licensed properties, or kind of a mix of both?
We're definitely going to become a mix of both. Right now, we're a brand new service. We've been around for 30 days live. Our apps are just now hitting the app stores right now. We are a service that definitely is about licensing content and bringing back all the stuff that you love and a lot of films that you can't even find anymore. But at the same time, we're also about creating new B movies. We're about being the service that as we grow and get enough subscribers, we're going to be that force that comes out and says, we're still financing these things. We're going to make these. The movies that you want to see, the Animal House again, making a real new, I know they did another American Pie a little while back. That was the most family-friendly American Pie I'd ever seen. I'm like, this is an American Pie. And I'm friends with Warren. Warren's like, look, I didn't do that. Don't let me. American Pie is supposed to be this crazy, raunchy, fun film where we're allowed to laugh, and that's what we want to give you. But it does take a minute to where we have to have enough subscribers to where we can warrant the investment. Because we are a business, we have to be able to, turn a profit. And we're not necessarily in the turn a profit stage, but we have to make sure we have a strong enough subscriber base that our investments don't put us in a gigantic hole. So, if people want to see those type of movies, be it a horror film where the girl still dies in the shower occasionally, or the American Pie-esque, Animal House-esque film, like, please subscribe. We'll make those. Tell us what you want. Literally, we have the Hive. Join the Hive once you're there. You don't have to pay anymore. You just go to that portion, you click on it, talk to us, tell us the movies you miss. We're going to make the movies you want to see. We're not just going to make our own movies. You tell us, hey, we want to see more of these. We're going to make more of these. And we're not just going to do it in-house. If there's great directors, we were talking, you'll see a lot of Jim Wynorski films on our service right now. The guy who made the great Chopping Mall. We've got his Return of Swamp things on here, and we've got his Gilla movie and Sorceress, of course. And he was this great classic B movie guy. And one of the things that we talked about is we want to be able to fund those guys. We want to be able to let them make the movies we loved again. So this isn't just about, hey, come see a newly made Brad Lyon film. I'll make those too for the people who love those. But like we want to finance the guys who we're missing. We wish National Lampoons was really still around kicking, because those are guys we'd want to make movies again, and that's what we want. We want to be able to have a place for the movies we love. And we want a place for all those fans to say, hey, I can love that again. I can high five someone for a scene, not be afraid to be able to say, I like this movie.
Do you guys support indie filmmakers? And if so, how could filmmakers get involved with you guys?
Well, I am one. There's no doubt that the studios aren't paying my bills. I've got to scratch and claw for every dollar. So yeah, this was about part of our motivation was generated from revenue. And that aspect wasn't just about us. It was about realizing that because there's so few avenues for revenue for the filmmaker, we want to be a very revenue-friendly company. Obviously, we've got to be able to make money, but at the same time, we want to be able to do as many direct with filmmaker deals as possible so that you're getting revenue yourself, so that's coming into your pocket. Matter of fact, so much so that we just spent some money we really didn't have. But we went ahead and adapted our service to add a VOD aspect. So even for people who come to our website and aren't subscribers, you'll now be able to rent some of our movies for 2 days at a period. You can even buy the digital movie from our site, and that revenue, when we do deals directly with an independent filmmaker, that revenue will be able to go right to their pocket instead of a middleman and an extra middleman. And trust me, I hate to say it, but I've been part of the middleman. Like, it's not their job to be your friend and give you a bunch of money. They want to do a deal with you where it benefits them the best. The more money they're paying you doesn't work out to the more money they're making. So they want a deal that's as friendly for them as possible. So when you can take that out of the equation, which is what we do, there's no distributor in between us when we do a deal with the independent filmmaker. You're actually getting the revenue straight. You're not getting a cut from a cut from a cut,
So should they already have a finished product and you would be the distributor, or how would that work?
I mean, in theory, technically, I would be lying or wrong if I said we weren't a distributor. Anyone who distributes content in any fashion, even to the public or to other distributors, is thereby a distributor. So in essence, we technically are. But no, we want you to think of us more like, the actual Walmart or the actual Family Video or Blockbuster. We're bringing the content right to the people. You're bringing it right to us and skipping the middleman when we do a deal with you. Doesn't mean we don't have a whole bunch of deals with distributors, is what we do. And it is time consuming. It's hard for us to take a look at every movie, especially when it doesn't really hit like our market. Yeah. So we try and look at submissions as much as possible. We're happy to look at them when we can. We'll come up with some way in the future to be able to prioritize it, so you can come right to us and we'll make sure to look at it, which doesn't cost us a whole bunch of money, because even whether it's myself or one of our handful of employees, they have to, we're paying those people per hour to sit there and watch the movies and evaluate them. So, I mean, we have to find a way to where we're not losing too much money doing that. But, yeah, we want you to come to us. We want you to reach out, but please do have a finished film. Make sure, if you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's, make sure you have all the paperwork, have all the releases for every actor, every extra. Please have errors and omission insurance. Sometimes we'll work that out, but make sure you have location releases. There's so many times people don't even have the rights to the likeness of the place they filmed at. and make sure you don't have a bunch of content. We were just looking at this movie that had a Red Wings jersey on the main character throughout the entire movie. And it's really questionable if that's fair use. You know,
Right.
and we can afford to get our butts kicked by the
By a
NHL.
bigger company, yeah.
Yeah. So please, do your due diligence, learn the business of it. But if you have a completed film, especially if you have a completed film that for some reason hasn't found the right distributor or hasn't found its right like digital home, even though it's a good solid film, we're happy to take a look at it. We want to put it out.
It's funny that you say that because when I was working on the Homie and the Redneck one, right? I'm telling my artist, hey, this is what the poster's got to look like. I said, I want something that looks. I don't want it to be the actors, but I want something that's going to look like Ice Cube and Jeff Foxworthy.
Okay.
I went through 5 different artists, and all 5 artists got it wrong and actually drew Jeff Foxworthy. And I go, I'm trying to tell them, like, I can't use that. Like,
Right.
I will get sued if I use that. I said, I need something like it,
Yeah, that's a difficult thing too. When you're creating a like this, I shouldn't get off on a tangent about this, but as long as there is a slight derivative from the actual person, and you're clearly stating this is the character's name, there's a chance you can typically get away with it if it's obvious you're not trying to be that. Sometimes you just put a hat and say my name is Bob, even though this looks like Jeff Foxworthy.
I only brought that up because I know you were having problems with your logo, and I was like, I relate to it. The film industry is shifting towards ad-supported content. What's your take on it?
I feel everything's worthwhile. I'm never going to knock any revenue source by any means. I'm not the biggest fan of streaming with ads personally. And the reason for that is I feel like, and I'm a little older than the average person, I'm not 20 years old anymore.
But you look good for your age. You still look young.
Well, I appreciate that. And when I converted to streaming first, one of the motivators was I don't have to watch commercials all the time. I don't hate commercials, but I just like being tied into my movie. And that's why I think the B Stream will always remain a company where between the opening credits and the end credit roll, you're not going to see a commercial. Now, that doesn't mean we won't occasionally partner with an advertiser, and you'll see it at the end of a trailer. We have that now. Like if you go to our trailers, even just on our YouTube channel that we just put up, where we're showing all the trailers for some movies we got coming out, we add some of our partner advertisers at the end of it. But we're not going to interrupt your viewing pleasure. Like we want you to enjoy yourself. I'm not against it. It makes sense. Any bit of revenue you can have and add to the Filmmaker's Pocket is fantastic. But I just don't want to hit you with a subscription fee and advertising. Come on, Netflix.
Do you see AI playing a role in curating or creating content in the future of streaming service?
Hopefully not the curating part, but the reality is yes. No matter how much we want to deny it, technology is going to continue to advance, and eventually it's going to be so good that it is a competitor and may one day put some of us out. I think it'll be more kind of like the people who love their VHSs and DVDs, where there's going to be a lot of people's like, I want the authentic aspect of a movie made by a director with real life human actors. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be a lot of the public that just don't care, and they're just going to be like, hey, put it in front of me. I want to just see a fun movie and relax and chill, and that's okay. You're not wrong with that. Like what you like. That's what the B Stream's about. Like what you like. We're the home to people who gets to like what they like. Like, please sign up and enjoy movies and know we're going to put them out there, and we're not afraid to put them out there. We've already had our first few protesters. I had a complaint just yesterday, and I'm like, yes, thank you. Voice your opinion. I'm glad. High five. You have the right to your opinion. And that's why we exist, so that we have a home where we can watch the movies we want.
Yeah. As a fan of entertainment, what are some of your favorite movies you like to watch?
Oh, man. My list is eclectic. It's all over the place because they'll be like, wait, did you just compare that with that? My number one spot is actually a tie. 2 films do battle in my top spot all the time. My number one film is Killer Clowns from Outer Space of all movies.
Oh my god, I was just seeing a stream talking about that, how they got a video game about it now.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's awesome. They almost made a part 2, man. At one point, they were really pushing for it. And tied with that is Braveheart. So here we got this great Oscar-winning film, opposite Killer Clowns. My top 5 consists of guys like James Gunn with movies like Super, which was,
Super
highly
was amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how so many people miss that. But then I'll go on and I'll find like Alejandro Inarritu. I love Birdman. I think Birdman was one of the most beautifully shot films in the history of cinema. So I'm all over the place. Like I love my Big Trouble in Little China's, but I also love that movie that shows like, man, this person found a way to paint a movie with light.
I'll tell you what, my number one film is an indie film. Well, it's not much indie now. It's pretty much a cult classic, but Clerks.
Oh yeah, have you noticed
Clerks.
in a lot of our films, you'll find VSQ Universe people. Matter of fact, there's a brand new, just came out yesterday. I just posted this on my own social media. There is a new review of Thursday the 12th, where they're calling it the Mallrats of Horror.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, we pay tribute to them. I mean, we even have Marilyn Gigliotti is one of the characters in the film. She, of course, was the girlfriend in Clerks. My newest film coming out, Killer Keg, has Jeremy London in it. I think I've directed just about everyone from that VSQ universe at some point, minus a couple of bigger names like Matt Damon.
That's awesome. Yeah, Kevin Smith is really one of my big inspirations as a filmmaker.
And he's a nice guy. When do you remember Robert Zadar? Know who Robert Zadar is?
Yeah.
So when Bobby Z died, I was his manager at the time, and we were close. I mean, the guy called me every day. We went on so many trips together. We did a bunch of festivals together. And when he passed away, Kevin Smith reached out and he's like, "Look, man, I hear about your buddy dying. I want to let you know I never had the privilege of working with him. I had always intended to, because I grew up watching him. One of the most common movies he said he put in the VHS player at his work when he was working at the place was Maniac Cop. He was like, it was one of his favorite films. He watched it like 100 times. I'm like, oh, that was such a great story. But most importantly, it was so cool to see him just stop to care and take the time out and reach out because he wanted to share that story and tell that, make a person feel better. That's cool. You don't see that a lot. I always tip my hats off to guys like, I remember when Jamie Foxx got a hold of me because I had made this comment about how I didn't think he was a great cast for Electro. It didn't fit in that Spider-Man movie. And then I watched it. I'm like, you know what? He was so good that
he was different.
I forgot all the aspects of why I didn't, and I still believed him as this nerdy little dork guy. Like I believed he was who Electro was supposed to be, and it worked. And he said, like, that's what we fight for, as an actor. And I got that when I talked to him, because he was like, it's the people who don't envision us being able to play something, and we sell it, and we're like, wow, I lost it, and I believed in that character. It's like that's the moment we fight for,
Listen, I will fight to the day I die about the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I love that movie. I think it's very underappreciated, especially when you see some of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Like, I don't like the first Amazing Spider-Man. I'm one of the people who do not like the first one, but I enjoyed the second one for the most part.
Yeah,
granted, I understand the criticisms. I can't defend a lot of the movie, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
There's only for the most part, I can defend almost every Spider-Man iteration on some level and be happy with them, be entertained. I'll tell you what, that first time seeing Rhino at the end of that one movie, and I won't trash a certain movie, but when it's literally just this dude inside a robot shell, I'm like, no, you just ruined Rhino for me, man.
Yeah, I'm not defending Rhino, but most of the movie I did enjoy.
Yes, I know. I love that. Then that's the whole thing. Like, I enjoy that movie, but why'd you do that to Rhino? Like, you could have cast a guy like me, and you don't have to worry about it. Like there's this Popeye project I'm involved in. And I remember sitting down in this casting room. I'm like, look, there are no less than 4 amazing people you have in this waiting room scheduled to read for you. One of them I'm a gigantic fan of. and he's better than me. He's a better actor than me. At least I believe it. But here's the thing: every one of those guys is skinny. Every one of those guys, you're going to have to put a bodysuit on, and you're going to have to spend 3, 4, 5 hours in the makeup chair every day, and that's the lost time that you're not going to be able to film. Sir, I am the spitting image of Bluto. I am literally Bluto as
absolutely.
if
I can see it. You say that, and then like, bam.
I mean, I have a 60-inch chest, for Pete's sake. Like, I am the living embodiment of the cartoon, and that's the thing. Like, either there's people you could have came out and found, and you wouldn't have had to doll it up and made this. You would have just been like, yeah, that's the guy. You know?
Oh, I can tell you one guy right now that I'm friends with, and I'm not saying that he's perfect because I'm friends with him. I'm saying he's got the look and he's an actor.
Mm-hmm.
He was on Amazing Race.
Okay.
And he would be a perfect Popeye, but bam, he's got the jacked up. He's jacked, you know. He's a little older, so he's got that scruffiness to him. Like, depending on where you're going with Popeye, he would make a good Popeye as well.
Well, this particular one that I'm involved in, they're actually going for a slightly younger aspect.
Oh, okay.
It's just kind of slightly after. So Bluto and Popeye were initially friends.
Yeah.
And they had a falling out. And this is one of those where it's like, if this could become a franchise, we want to pair these guys up and have them in an age range where, 10 years from now, they might look, or maybe even 20 years from now, they might look like the initial comic strip. And that gives us all these years to make future sequels, which is beautiful. I hope they're right. We'll see.
If you could have
phone calls now on other Popeye ones where they've recent filmmakers have made some horror Popeye-esque films, and they're like,
yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and they're like, look, Bluto's going to be in public domain in a year. We want to do this sequel. One of them's like, we just want to do a Bluto, and I'm like, well, I'm open to talk.
Yeah. Do you have any celebrities that you would wish to endorse the B stream? Do you have any like dream celebrities that you?
There are celebrities that, as a director, you always dream of working with, right? There are people that you just find their talent phenomenal. And the thing is, I think there's a difference between the people that I would love to work with, like as a director, for the sake of directing and projects I'm looking at making, and then people who truly fit the B stream. There are actors that were designed to be, the face of the B stream. There are the Bruce Campbells of the world that, there's no actor that shows up in more B movies, during in the 80s, early 90s than that type of guy. And that's a lot of the type of content that we have, or we're working to license or show. And those are the type of people that we would like to be the emphasis. Those are the films. Those are the actors. We are hoping with our originals that we can take some of those famous B movie guys and girls, of course, and bring them back and give them that life and show them again. Even ones that are currently acting. I don't want to act like they don't have this fantastic career. We just want to bring them back in that world. But we also realize, like, you've created a brand. You deserve to be treated like you are a brand and paid respectfully. I mean, that's why you work your butt off to have the career. So we want to make sure we can have the budget to treat them properly. Though hats off to the actors who are just like, you know what? I love this. I mean, gosh, I remember when Johnny Depp did that film for Kevin Smith and worked for Practically Scale. Like that was beautiful. I mean, I practically shed a tear when I heard that. Like when Jonah Hill, who was such a Marty fan, was like, dude, I will work for Scale just to work for Marty. Those opportunities are fantastic. And we realize the B stream isn't like that necessarily yet. We hope one day someone's going to be like, you know what? I would love to work with you guys because I love B movies, and we're looking forward to that. And we think that'll happen. But we want to make sure we create the environment that produces that type of emotional response.
What advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs in the entertainment industry?
Do it. So many people you hear say, don't do this unless you're willing to die to get done. And there's authenticity to that. That's real. But there's so many people I meet in my daily life that give me their sob crying story of why they're not an actor, why they're not a director, why this or that. And really, here's the only thing. It's because they don't do. They
Right.
talk.
Absolutely.
And all it takes is making the step towards it. Anything in life, everything in life that you dreamed about, there's someone who's already showed you the way. If you wanted to be an astronaut, guess what? There are astronauts that exist. This has happened. You do the things they did, and you can get there. Regardless what your dream is, making a movie, being a doctor, it all can be done if you simply do the work these people have already showed can put you on that pathway. People are lazy. They want to make excuses. They want to say that their obstacle is too much, but the only obstacle you have is your work ethic.
Right.
If you were willing to put in the time and effort, regardless of the age, I don't care what, you could be 5 or 95. I mean, I remember, I won't give this young lady a shout out because we didn't have the greatest ending to a relationship, but I dated this woman who for a number of years was a fantastic person. And I've had my own faults, not going to get into that. But I remember I was really inspired by a relative of hers because this woman in her 80s went back and got a degree in a field she always wanted to get a degree in. And that was amazing because she just went out and did it because she wanted to. And
like you just do it.
Yeah. And they're not wrong. Nike's slogan was brilliant because it's accurate. If you want to do something, just do it. Don't give me an excuse. Don't tell me how hard your life is or why you can't. The reality is life's going to always be hard. Why not make it hard doing something you want versus making it hard doing something for someone else?
Right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Can you tell my fans where they might be able to find you and where they can find B-Stream?
Okay, yeah. So for me personally, all you got to do is remember the name that's right there on the screen. It is bradleolion.com. You can click on the Brad Lyon page, see all of my stuff. We even got links to the B-Stream there too. Or the B-Stream's pretty simple. It's thebstream.com. And of course, we're just populating your app stores right now. So the Play Store, the Apple Store, all that. The B-Stream's coming to those as well. We're in testing right now on the Android, so that should be coming up quick. Apple, we've went back and forth past couple weeks. Looks like we're just about at the approval and live point. But regardless, the bstream.com in the meantime, we hope you'll subscribe. Matter of fact, I'll try and make a promo code so that if you visited the Nerd Talk podcast, you'll be able to tune in. I'll probably make it like nerd in all capitals and give you guys a discount just for showing up.
Sounds good. And we'll be plugging your stuff every episode. Put it right in the front of every episode from now on,
I appreciate that, my friend. I really do. So, yeah, if you're seeing this now and you want to subscribe, you'll get a discount. When you go to our page at thebstream.com, just log in. When you go to subscribe, it'll give you this little coupon code thing like, hey, do you have a coupon code? Type in nerd, all capitals, boom, you got a discount.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for hosting us.
And hey, thank you.